All right. Hey. Another episode of the Unshakable podcast on hand. Today, we are talking about fear of success and fear of failure, which are two, you would think, how do those fit together? They're totally on the opposite. But I think we're going to have an incredibly productive conversation about both because I think they have similar roots, right? So,
Yeah.
Amber, what do you think when that topic comes up? I know both of us were like, I'm really feeling that one today. Like, there's some value to add. What do you think stands out most to you in this moment?
Yeah, I think about the first time I heard about fear of success and I was like, who's afraid of success? Right? Like we have that seriously, like looking at it like why would I be afraid to succeed? And so I think we have to be able to open our minds and really see. So that strikes me first. And the second thing that strikes me is just the fear. And so if you'll recall, we're in the midst of this top 10 toxic thoughts and behaviors that keep us stuck in self sabotage. And these are two of them. And so we're marrying them together today because they are so closely related. But I think that fear, it's really this like uncovering fear. What are you afraid of? Because that fear will keep us stuck. And so those are the two things that really hit me, like fear and then who's afraid of success? Well, come to find out, I probably am. Right? Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, because what does it mean to have success is that you're seen.
Yes.
And it's so, again, it's those contrasting statements. So I want to be seen, known, heard, and loved, right? But don't see me and don't hear me. I'm not going to step out. I have a client right now who she's got an amazing story. She's recovering from that terrible diagnosis that nobody ever wants, that C word. And she is like, she's saying, I'm ready to tell my story.
Mm.
But it took her a couple of months to even be willing to tell people.
Yeah,
Why? Because you're going to be seen.
yeah.
There's this I'm afraid to be seen, but I really want to be seen. Talk about incongruencies in the back of the mind, the subconscious, right? They're tugging at each other, pulling back and
Mhm.
forth. Why am I not successful? Well, I'm holding myself back because success is scary. And you see how like our subconscious is just tugging us back and forth. It's a tug of war. I can see it just pushing back and forth and the tension that really causes. So how do you identify that? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's so normal, right? Like it's so familiar. That's the word I should use. It's so familiar. And I think there's so many aspects to it, right? Like we're afraid to be seen, but why? And so we have to ask those deeper questions. Why am I afraid to be seen? I know for me, a part of it was I'm worried about what they're going to think. The elusive they, right? Like the whole world, what are they gonna think? What are they gonna think if I'm successful? What are they gonna think if I'm seen? What are they gonna think if I show up on social media or if I make $1 million this year doing this thing that I love, right? Because for me, there was so much judgment in my childhood. Right, and so I picked that up, but that like, I didn't know that for years. That wasn't a thing that I was even really aware of, that I was afraid of being judged, and so it requires asking those questions, "Why?" I think that that is the place to start. What are your thoughts on that? Like, how do we start to recognize this so that we can break free from it? Because I feel like today is us shining a flashlight, like, oh, there it is, so that our listeners can be like, oh, it is inside of me, and now that I see it, I can do something about it. And so I think that would be my goal for our viewers today who are hearing this, like to have an awareness. I do have a fear of failure, or I do have a fear of success. So, yeah, what are some other things we can shed some light on, Rebecca, when it comes to finding this?
Yeah, for me, I would say, well, you battle more of the fear of success. For me, I have the fear of failure. I would say that does creep in, and how that really shows up is maybe, hey, real time thing. My trainer is like, I want your main focus to be reaching out and connecting touch points with these certain people. And it's been almost 2 weeks. I meet with her tomorrow, and I haven't taken a step on that. And I had to ask myself why. Why is that? And there's several stories that I've created to cover the reason why, but the reality is the fear of failure has so much to it.
Mm,
Like, say, if I fail right now, my failure affects other people
yeah,
and their success. Or, if I fail right now, what does that mean about my value and my identity? Or if I fail right now, what's going to be left in its wake? If
yeah,
I fail right now, how is my family going to feel? How will I feel about myself? And I think it comes from past failure, right? I remember when I was leading the church, it was like there was this time we had a pastor from Madison. So he had come from an hour and a half away or so, or is it about 2 hours? Doesn't matter. But he came in and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you guys are growing so much. This is awesome. This is beautiful." Right. And there's this big celebration. And it was literally right after that, the whole thing got blown up. It was
mm,
not just a couple of months after that. And so I'm like, that's almost a fear of success because it comes in like, oh, is this happening like that happened before? Where everything's starting to look good and then it all gets removed. So then it's a fear of loss coming in. Like when I think of this fear of success, fear of failure, I feel like there's something to it to identify what are you really afraid of here?
yeah,
And I think that can be different for all of us. But as you said just a couple of seconds ago, the key word here is fear, isn't it?
mhm,
Because fear of success comes with, okay, that's going to be a lot of work and people are going to see and know me. And then it's a lot of responsibility. Can I really? And then that's when that imposter syndrome comes in. I'm not trained enough. I need to take another class. I need another certification. Let's bury that sucker so deep I never really have to step out. That's the fear of success to me is this
yeah,
like never quite ready and never quite trained enough, never quite enough at all
yeah,
that it just holds you back from taking the steps. But it's interesting because both of them hold you back from taking the same steps. It's exact same steps. That's why they're
mhm,
so intertwined. So is it fear of failure? Is it fear of success? And behind that fear, what fear is driving that?
right,
Is it fear of loss? Is it fear of abandonment? Is it fear of public judgment? Which, yes, because I've been stretched in ways that maybe others haven't allowed them to be stretched, which may make me look controversial at times. And so then would I be judged as, bad or evil or, something like that? I don't know. That can be really scary. I have a friend of mine, his name's Adam. Y'all should meet him. He's amazing. Maybe I should have him on this podcast
yeah,
sometime soon. But he's like, he loves it. He has a TikTok where people just they say stuff all the way through. And he's like, that's great because it's got them engaging, doesn't it? you know?
wow,
And he actually celebrates all the big blow ups that happen based on what he says. And I really actually appreciate that about him because to me, it's like, if I rock the boat, then I have to deal with all that rocking,
yeah.
right? So, yeah, what are your thoughts, Amber?
Yeah, I think a couple things I was thinking of. I think for that fear of failure, or actually, I think it's the fear of success. So we almost set ourselves up to fail, right? And then we're like, well, I tried. I tried and it didn't work. And so now I can go back to hiding and go back to playing small and go back to not taking those steps. Because, see, I tried and it didn't work. And so I think that like we have to be aware of that. And so maybe even that awareness comes when you take a step out and you do something and it fails. What story are you telling yourself then? What meaning are you giving to that? Because I think that'll help each of us to roll it back and figure out like what's really going on here. What am I really afraid of? And so I think that was one thing. And then the other thing I was thinking is like that fear in general. We have so many stories that we're telling ourselves about ourselves tied to it.
Yes.
Like, really? And so that question of what are you really afraid of? I think that's worth wrestling with and really getting down to. But I also think asking that, what story am I telling myself? And honestly, too, being aware of how we're viewing other people's successes and failures, right? Like when someone succeeds, are you celebrating with them and you're excited for them and naturally, or are you sitting in judgment? Right? When someone steps out and fails, what are you saying? Like I think that those, it's so easy to be like, well, that was outside of me, external, but it's really holding up a mirror. So the way that you respond to someone else's success or failure tells a lot about the state of your heart and where you might be feeling or staying stuck. And I think we have a lot of judgments that we aren't even aware of. I
Yeah.
I think we live in a lot of where we evaluate people around us all of the time. And if we could stop doing that, the world would be a better place for all of us.
I think we're uncovering. I don't know. It's when my kids were growing up. Some people don't know this show, but if y'all remember Agent Oso, the show, the cartoon, and there's always 3 special steps, and I love that because A, it's in the right state, it's done as happy, and it's not done as work, it's just 3 special steps, and it's really like, there's a lightness to it, and it's simplicity, and it's not complex, and I absolutely love Agent Oso, and I think we're uncovering the 3 special steps here, aren't we?
Yes.
It's funny because we just wing this, right? We're not rehearsing this beforehand. We don't have a slideshow presentation. We're wanting real, raw, authentic conversation. But here's what's coming up. It's first, identify. What is this? What am I really afraid of? Second, what is the story I'm telling myself about it, right? And the third one, I think, is the reframe. How do I tell myself a different story? I had a good one last year in October that I learned to see some failure in a different light. I'd love to share it. It was my very first time at my age at Disneyland. And I had, I think, 3 or 4 chances in a row to fly the Millennial Falcon, the Star Wars ship. And the one time I was up against probably an 8-year-old girl. And when we got done, she started telling me, you need to do this and you need to do that and do, all that stuff. And I was like, okay. And then the next time I went with this amazing woman from my group. Her name's Trudy. She is a trooper, that girl. Amazing story. Another person that'd be great to have on this podcast someday. But she flew with me. Because there's pilot and co, we're both pilots. And what we ended up doing was failing miserably together. Like it was bad. Like you couldn't have crashed the Millennial Falcon any better than we did. Like, it was, like, off the charts bad. We're lucky to come back alive, right? And I remembered how I felt after that. We did a little video for social media because the lesson really was some of some of your greatest memories are made when you truly fail. Like, some of the most fun, amazing, greatest memories are when all things go to crap. It really is. So we did a terrible job, but it created a memory and a friendship between us. And the same with even mountain climbing with my friend Athena. The last time she was here, it was rainy. It was terrible. It was like so cold and like we were hiding under a tree, just totally shaking. And it's one of our most fun memories is when it all went wrong.
Mm.
And so for me, the reframe is okay, so I got to realize, okay, what's really going on here? Okay, let's identify. There's some fear coming in here. I'm afraid of success or I'm afraid to fail. And to really get down with, well, what am I really afraid of? Because I think there's a deeper question. What am I really afraid of? Which leads into what are the stories I'm telling myself? If I fail, I won't be loved. If I fail, it means I'm not enough. And because I'm not enough, I won't be loved. I won't belong. I'll be rejected. You see, those stories start coming in. And from that is such a good opportunity to change it into something amazing. It's like, "Oh, I was so cute today. I made such a fun memory. That was awesome." Yeah, I still remember getting on stage and leading a talk with my fly totally open, or the time I fell off the stage because I tripped, that was a raving success because everybody remembers that talk because I fell on my butt, and they go, "Oh, you remember that time when you fell down the" you remember? And they remember what I talked about too.
Oh,
And so it's like, "Cool, I just made a new memory." Right? Because it is the state, the emotional state that you show up in, the energy that you have, the way you show up, it makes all the difference.
yeah, that's awesome. So this really is then it's redefining failure and also redefining success,
Yes.
right? Like falling off a stage, you wouldn't normally call success,
I
but
would now.
right? But now you would because it was memorable, right? And so when I think that failure and success can be so surface level, and really who determines if it's failure or success? A lot of times we let other people determine, right? So like, oh, that video only got 5 likes and not 200 or more, or didn't go viral. That must have been a failure. Was it really? Of those 5 people that liked it, how many of those people were really touched deeply? Right? Like, and so the way that we're defining failure and success, I think, is worth looking at too. What is that? What is it really? And I would almost wonder, I like as we're talking this, obviously in real time, I'm like, I wonder if it's worth taking those words out of my vocabulary altogether. And it's just like, I tried something new today, and this is what happens. Because as I'm talking, I'm like, failure and success are kind of judgment words.
Oh,
They are evaluations. And you guys, I'm learning a communication process that I love. And that is one of the reasons I love it is because it is taking out the evaluations. And so
yes.
it's looking at the observation, like this is what I tried and this is what happens. This is how I felt about it. This was my desire behind it, right? Like really simple. But what if getting to the bottom of this is just simply to stop evaluating and just do? And I can't help but think I have a kiddo that wrestles. And there's something about that sport. Each time on the mat, it feels like a win or a lose. And some of those competitions are worth a lot of, like we want to win that medal, we want to win state, we whatever. And there's a wrestling quote or a quote in the wrestling world like, I never lose, I only win or I learn. And I started applying that. So when he'd come off the mat after a loss, of course I'd let him grieve, right? Like let him get his emotions out. And then I would be like, what did you learn? What did you learn? Because I'm not going to evaluate it as a loss because if you learn something, it could be a win. And so I think that's a like really practical example. Like, yeah, watching him come off and then once his big emotions would calm down and he'd be like, "Well, I realized that I kept my neck out too long or too far or I didn't get my butt low enough or whatever, like these mechanical things almost." Okay, then what are you going to do next time you're on the mat? Well, I'm going to start lower. I'm going to shoot first. I'm going to write whatever it is. Okay, that's a win. Who cares what the scoreboard says? Like, that is a win. But I think we have to redefine success and failure.
Mm. So how do we define success? Because that's been an interesting topic of discussion lately, at least in my life, is what are you considering as success? Because I've noticed, especially with the people I work with on regular basis, I mean, they're usually achievers, business owners, city leaders, government. I mean, like just a really wide variety. Stay-at-home moms, you even retired, like there's just a whole full scope of people. But something they all have in common that I've noticed, especially with people who like to achieve and who really like to get things done, is they tend to I keep seeing this image of a mini golf course. And so you've taken a couple of good shots and you're like 3 inches from the hole And then you personally, and I'm saying it's you, the one playing the game, you go up and you move the hole.
Yes.
And then you're trying to get to that hole. And then right before you do that, you move the hole again. And so becomes this repeated habit of never succeeding. And it's a story of somebody, she's widely known over in the European countries. I think it's Switzerland. She's a singer. So she's an artist, right? And she'll have 3,000 at her concerts all the time. And I remember her story, how she didn't think she was successful yet. You go from, a little piano in a high school somewhere to on stage with thousands of people, and you still don't know that you're successful.
Mm.
And I think that's what we do a lot of I do it to myself. It's ridiculous. I have corrected that quite a bit in this time, but I realize I'm never celebrating.
Mhm.
And kind of when you're talking about that, Amber, it reminds me of just what I loved. It's just a saying that has been put in my heart that has become one of my key phrases is everything is an opportunity. When you win, you have an opportunity to celebrate. When you fail, you have an opportunity to learn, which is then an opportunity to celebrate. So it all goes back to we should always be celebrating. There's always a reason to celebrate. And so when we redefine this, first of all, what is success? Because what does done look like? And how, because you're always a success to some extent. At the same time, you're always in a process to some extent. I remember this one relationship I had. I said, "Oh, I'm in this season, or I'm in that season," and he's like, "For crying out loud, you're always in a season." I'm like, "Exactly. You know what? The earth is always in a season: winter, spring, summer, and fall."
Yeah.
Now I got a song. All you have to do is call when you need. Anyways, we'll move on from that. But you're always in a season. So no matter what, there's always another level. There's always progress being made. If you're not growing, you're dying. It's just fact. You're never standing still.
Yeah.
Everything on this earth, it's either growing or dying, period. And so if we never stop and say, what is success in this? What can I call done? What does
Mm.
done really look like? Then we'll never appreciate where we're at in the moment. And then it stops us from actually going to the next one because we're still pursuing something we already have.
Yeah.
And that is just, it feels heavy even talking about it now, is how painful that is for us.
Mhm.
Sit in this never succeeding hamster wheel. It's like run, 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 and move the goal every time.
Yeah.
It's like a bad game
Mhm.
you never want to play, right? So the call to redefine success and redefine failure, I want to say to all of you listening, this isn't really important. So I guess I ask you all, what is success look like for you? And why are you calling it failure at all?
Yeah, and I think part of that is when you're defining success, take the evaluations off,
Yep.
right? Like, just get to the observation. Like, success looks like I showed up. Okay, right? You can do
Exactly.
that, right? Like, but just to be aware of the evaluation. It reminds me, this is really practical, but we were on family vacation a couple weeks ago, and we were down in Florida, and it was so hot. And we were spending a day in Orlando at Universal Studios because my kids, we love the movie How to Train Your Dragon. Oh my gosh, it's one of our favorite family shows. And so Universal Studios has the Land of Berk. And so you can see the dragons, you can meet Toothless, like it's this whole thing. We were so excited. So we had our tickets, we drive up to Orlando, and before we left the condo, I looked at my husband and I said, "It's going to feel like 105 today. Let's not have any expectation of how long we're there." And so we agreed going in. If we're there for 4 hours and the kids have a great time and we all leave happy and healthy, that's a win. Now, what we paid for those 4 hours, right? And so that's why I pulled my husband aside like, "I know this was a pricey day, But if we go in with the expectation of we have to be here for 12 hours to make it worth the money, we are going to hurt relationship and potentially hurt our kids in the process.
Yes.
And so that's just an example of like we redefine success. Success that day was not that we got our money's worth. It was that our kids had a great time. They got to eat the mac and cheese cones that they were longing for. They got to meet Toothless, and we all left and we were healthy. We were all still standing and we were able to enjoy our evening. Nobody was sick or passed out or anything like that, right? And so that's a like practical like shift of what does success look like?
Yeah.
We redefined it. And we did that before we went into the day, which I think is
Mm.
an important thing too, right? Like before you're taking a step, sit down and think through and kind of define what does that look like? What would success look like even for today? What would a successful day look like today?
What does success look like today? I love how you said, let's start the day with intentions already in place. I teach that with my time management processes because I believe that time management is a mindset. You think of it as a tool or whatever, but it's a way of thinking. And what I'm hearing you say here is like, let's go in knowing what our result is. The result is happy, healthy family,
Yeah.
not, killing ourselves to have a quote good time, right? And so that changes the trajectory of what needs to happen because a lot of times our disappointment is really tied into our own expectations or the internal rules that we've created. And I also like how you're really highlighting. I've heard you say it a couple times. I really think it's important to drive it home because it's really hitting your heart. It's like, can you tell can you talk about the situation without all the stories attached? Girl crossed the street, girl went, it, just the facts.
Mhm.
And then take out all the emotion and all the stories and actually be able to look at it from that perspective is really it really does change because it's amazing how a lot of times we'll put stories to things and that actually isn't true or reality
Mhm.
happening. It's what's happening inside of our little amygdala that
Yeah.
is creating that. And if you actually look at it without the stories, you might be able to reframe it differently, approach it differently, and have a completely different result.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that both you and I, again, are hearing that at the same time. Me and you tend to just get these things highlighted at the exact
Yes.
same time, but in a totally different route. It's so
Mhm.
beautiful how that happened.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is fun. I would throw in a little tidbit. This one's for you guys. For the stories we're telling ourselves. I've got a couple clients and a couple friends these past couple weeks saying things like, well, she said this, and then I felt like she didn't want to be around me. I felt like she was ignoring me. I felt like, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, that's not a feeling. That's not an emotion. And so I'm learning that triggers me when I say or hear someone else say, well, I feel like most likely you're telling yourself a story.
Yep.
That's what's happening. And so
Yep.
that's just a like that's a really easy catch because we do for especially people with a lot of emotions, you pay attention. You'll hear people that are really emotional say I feel like all of the time and that gives you a clue that they're telling themselves some stories.
Really well said, Amber.
It's
I love it.
powerful. It's powerful stuff. Changes the way I'm talking. That's what's happened.
Yes.
Oh,
It's so interesting because when you hear people that way, then you're more apt to be able to serve them better, to do better by them as a friend.
yeah.
So you're like, oh, these are stories. That's something to look at and ask the question, is this true? And, what would it be like if I was unable to feel that?
Yeah.
Like if I didn't approach it with all of that? It it's interesting how that completely changes. I'll walk people through certain exercises where it's a perspective exercise and they'll be like they've judged the situation completely, right? This is what it is. And I have them go through 5 and sometimes even more, 5 different ways they could look at it.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, "Now you have a choice. What's the most empowering way you could look at the situation? Pick from your list because it isn't likely not the first
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
that you came up with. It's likely like the 5th one, honestly. It's like
Yeah.
way down there. Oh, well, maybe it's this, right? And then you're empowered to be a part of the solution as a result, which is
Mhm.
absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm curious in this conversation, fear of success, fear and failure, what still needs to be talked about before we have to wrap up this conversation?
Oh, man.
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like we could keep like, this is one of those conversations I wanna sit down with our listeners one-on-one and talk through, like, coach through, right? Because there's so many nuances to that, and so much potential for healing of old wounds and cutting off those limiting beliefs and really asking what is true, and redefining. And so this is so big. Uh, so to a general audience, I don't know what's next. What do you have any thoughts on?
I'm with you on that. I love walking people through this. It is absolutely amazing the result that happens. And
Yes.
so I guess my charge to everyone is first of all, where are you holding yourself back from taking action? Because honestly, a lot of times it's the story we're telling ourselves, especially in the background that's running in the background. It's just on repeat that's keeping us from taking the actions we need. And then we're kicking ourselves in the butt. We're beating ourselves up for not accomplishing the thing that we didn't step into. And it just becomes this domino effect. So it's like, if you were, what would you do if you were 10 times bolder right now? Let that sit. What would you do if you were 10 times bolder right now? What would you do if fear was not an issue? How would you show it differently? What would you be able to step into that right now you're not able to step into? How empowered would you feel? What could happen in your life if we lift the glass ceiling off of you and you did that internal work that you need to do? I know for myself, it creates just an incredible momentum when you're willing to do that work. And I agree with you, Amber. There's just some of this that has to happen in the midst of relationship and
Yeah.
conversation that you actually walk through it. And when you walk through it, then you learn to coach yourself in the moment. That's what we love here is, hey, let's not get hooked on having to everything. I know people, and hey, I honor the counseling industry. Disclaimer before we go any further, I honor it totally. But people will just have to run to their counselor, emergency counseling, like right away, counselor, counselor, counselor. I want to see you empowered to coach yourself in the moment, to make those choices about how you're going to show up and step into things, to get out of your own way, to not be dependent, but to be able to get these processes and tools in place that empower you to actually take care of you right away. Because it doesn't have to be a big thing. I think for me, it's amazing being in the unshakable life because that's what you and I are living out right now, the unshakable life. That's why we help people become unshakable, totally solid inside themselves despite their circumstances, right? The way we do that, though, is we first have to do that personal work. But it's amazing how I don't have these big, like, swings anymore. It's just like I feel angry. Well, this is what anger means. Well, is that true? Is that really true?
Yeah.
Do I need to believe something different or do something? Like I just do it right in the moment and I can reset where you don't blow up anymore. There just
Yeah.
doesn't happen. And that's been an interesting thing to navigate because most people expect that I'll take you serious, especially your guys, right? I'll take you seriously when you finally blow up because that's what they know and that's what they grew up around. And now they're like, "Oh, you actually were angry?" Yeah, yeah, I actually was. My husband, he was totally tripped out when we were first getting to really know each other. He's like, "That's you angry? What is this?" Because I'll just say, "I feel angry."
Yeah.
And I'll say, "This is what's causing that anger," and which is an internal rule that I've created, and I'll just work it out and we'll work it out and okay. And it's so interesting what unshakable feels like. It's really beautiful. And so I encourage all of our listeners, let's look at that word unshakable together.
Yeah.
And again, we're always here to help you. What are any other last thoughts, Amber, before we wrap up today?
I don't think so. This was a good conversation. Yeah, I'm like walking away from it too. Like, what if I stopped saying failure and success.
Mhm.
Just started doing things and
I
letting
lo
and winning and learning, right? Like that's it. Learn and celebrate. Celebrate and learn.
oh, I love that.
That's
Learn and
awesome.
celebrate and learn. What a great way to end this conversation. Thanks everybody for listening in. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share with others
Yeah.
about this podcast. And we'll see you next time. Bye.